Let's try it again. Let's try it again. Everyone, super excited to have you joining me today. This is going to be a great episode of Thumbstop Live. Now, you might be asking yourself, what the heck is Thumbstop Live? Why did they have this random technical glitch? I don't know. I don't know the answer to the technical glitch, but you know what I do know? I do know the answer into what the heck Thumbstop Live is. So I wanted to bring you all up to speed a little bit on what we have going on. So if this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the party. Thumbstop Live is a daily show. So it's happening every Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. And we're streaming across a bunch of different platforms. So if you are checking us out on LinkedIn, hi, how's it going? YouTube live side, I see a couple of you out there. Amazing. Welcome to the party. Twitter and X, of course, check us out here. And then on the Instagram live side, I know we got the Instagram people over there. I'm so sorry about the actual size of the screen, but I promise we're going to have clips for you later. Okay? Fantastic, y'all. So this one's going to be great. We have Alyssa who's joining us a little bit later in the show where we're going to get into like the Gen Z mind, the Gen Z world. But to kick us off, I have a couple people that I'm so pumped to welcome to the stage. So they absolutely crush it on the creative side of things. And they are making noise across the board that I'm excited for them to bring to the stage. So without further ado, I would love to welcome Christian to the stage.
Thanks, Evan. I haven't been introduced as a Gen Z, so I don't know what I'm being introduced as. Definitely not a Gen Z, but you know.
No, you're good. You're good. I have someone joining me. So the way that these shows are structured is like I have a couple guests throughout the time. So it's like we kick off with one for the first 45, and then we have another later. So Alyssa's joining us later, and she'll cover us on the Gen Z front. But for now, you and I are good. Yeah. You and I are good. We got this covered.
Thanks for having me.
Most definitely, man. Most definitely. So before, like there's so many things I want to get into with you, of course, but before we jump too deep into the weeds, I'm wondering if we start nice and easy with a quick tell us about yourself professionally, personally, what you got going on, and then we can take it from there if that works.
100%. Yeah. So I'm Christian Zilio. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Content Jet. Content Jet is a performance-focused UGC agency. We mainly focus on mobile apps, gaming, and pure performance advertisers. I used to work at TikTok until a year ago, actually. It's my 1 year anniversary here in Content Jet. I was managing enterprise mobile app and gaming advertisers, as well as some other performance advertisers. And before TikTok, I was also working at Google. I spent almost 4 years there, also managing mobile app and performance advertisers. So been in this space for quite some time already. And on a personal level, not much going on, I would say. I love surfing, but I live in Madrid, so it's a bit difficult. But things have been going good.
I love it. I've never had the chance to go surfing before. I've heard only great things, and I feel like I need to carve it out. That feels like such a fun thing to do.
It is. It's fun, but it's hard. It's definitely hard, but very rewarding.
Literally only done water skiing, and the water skiing part literally will like pull me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can't do this. So I think I understand what you're saying, the hard and the mental fortitude you need to be able to see it through. Like, I feel like that's so essential. And Christian, thanks for the introduction. 100%. I feel like we have the other person on your team joining that we got to bring up here. So it's perfect timing when we're talking about intros. So next person, I'd love to welcome to the stage. So round of applause, y'all. We can bring Nicola to the stage.
Hi. Hello.
How's it going?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Evan.
Oh, no, I'm excited. Yeah, when Christian mentioned that you were being pulled in, I'm like, perfect. We'll bring the team together and we'll make this thing work. So again, I was letting Christian know we want to get into the meat and potatoes in a second here. But before we jump in, Christian's already given his intro. I'm wondering on your end, if you can give us a little bit of tell me about yourself professionally, personally, and then we can take from there, if that works.
Oh, goodness me. I won't, go into too much detail, but as you can tell, From the British accent, yes, I'm originally from the UK, but I now find myself in Montreal, Canada, and part of this new amazing team here at Content Jet. So I haven't been with the team long, but wow, we're like already starting to like make some big moves and impact, and we're really excited about what's to come. So what am I? Obviously, head of growth. What does that entail? So many different things. There's the marketing, there's the lead generation, there's the sales aspect, and yeah, we just basically trying to get as much, I mean, it speaks for itself, really. Trying to get the growth going and taking off the hand. I have a huge sales and marketing background, so hopefully I can inject my specialties and help the team grow. So, not the team grow, the company grow. I mean, we're already going in a fantastic direction, but yeah, the more hands on deck, the better solutions and effect we can have, hopefully. So.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I always love chatting with other people who are in Canada. So I know it's by way of the UK, but I'm in Toronto. So a lot of motion is Toronto based and Canada based. So super cool to hear. Super cool to hear.
Amazing. We're neighbors.
Yeah, pretty much a little train ride away, and we're happy. And I have a bunch of team members in Montreal too. So we got it all coming together. Okay, guys. Well, this is incredible. I think the very first place that I wanted to kick off is Christian. You had talked about the focus on performance and direct response advertisers, specifically in the app space. So talk to us about this. I think the first thing I'm curious about is, have you always been super app focused, or have you ever delved into the D2C world and like run ads for D2C companies or made creatives?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the focus has been on apps because, you know, as a bit of a backstory as to how I joined Content Jet, while mobile app advertisers, all the advertisers that I was working with, they were working already with Content Jet, and the ones that weren't working with Content Jet, I got them working with Content Jet. So we were working so much at the time that, you know, I met the CEO, and then, you know, we started having conversations, and we decided that it was time for me to join and just replicate this across other markets and across other industries as well. So now basically every advertiser that does performance and that does paid social is an advertiser that we're going to be doing a really good job with. And we're going to help them with the thing that they need the most to scale nowadays, which is volume, big variety of creatives, and increasing the win rate percentage. So we understood from very early on that creatives nowadays for performance, it needs two things. You need to increase the amount of videos that you're able to test, but you also need to have a proper creative strategy behind things, and that's where motion really kicks in and helps us out as well. And it helps us optimize all the creatives that we're doing for our advertisers. So yeah, it's not only mobile apps; it's also D2C and more industries that are very performance
Cool.
focused.
And one follow up there before pulling on a separate thread is just related to like succeeding within mobile apps. So our audience, they are typically D2C focused. It's like we hear all about the Ridge wallets, the HexClads, the Cuts clothings of the world. But it's like when we talk about apps are serious. Like they kill it, right? So I'm interested in getting your opinion on like what it takes, or what's the differences, or what are the differences when you're approaching something like making creative for apps versus making creative for D2C brands.
Well, I would say the main difference is the fact that for most apps, you don't need to send product to creators or to creative agencies so they can produce content. It's all online. So it's a lot faster, quicker, and the creative testing volume that these players can have is a lot bigger. So most of what we can do with DTC and most of what we're doing with DTC are learnings that we get from app advertisers, because the capacity that they have for testing is so much higher due to not having this constraint, that we're getting tons and tons of learnings from millions and millions of dollars in ad spend on what's working well, what's not working well from a structural standpoint when you're building a video, but also from a messaging standpoint and from a problem solution standpoint as well. So when we've started working now more with DTC type of players that are starting to request that volume from us, we have a pretty good idea on how we can approach a creative strategy matrix and allow them to test as many ads as possible without losing track of what they're testing, right? Because when you start doing this, you kind of lose track of what exactly have you tested and if it worked or not. And not being able to do so, it's really going to damage your ability to find those winners on a consistent basis. So it's very similar, and the learnings can definitely be shared across industries. But as you said, Evan, apps and games, they're not messing around. They are spending big budgets and they're testing big volumes of creative.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we got to talk about that matrix and the tracking portion in a bit, but Nicola, I'm going to throw the next one to you. So something that Christian had mentioned in there was the idea of making sure that the creative strategy is right. Now, here is where I'm always like a big proponent of, because it's like people want winning ads, emphasis on winning. And like that's hard to make. There's so much that goes on in being able to say, how do I make a winning ad? And one of the first areas that begins is within research. So trying to figure out like everything that needs to be done to determine what to make. So I'm wondering if you can speak to any of the frameworks or approaches that you might apply to being able to conduct the research for the clients that you work with.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's something that we really pride ourselves on. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but like that we have a very strong infrastructure with a very strong team that are able to keep, that creative aspect really fresh and energizing and like there's you have all the roles, it's not just a case of coming with us with your idea and then just us taking that to paper and making the videos. We have those creative strategists, we call them, because that there is a lot of strategy in the creativity concept. And one of the things that a lot of our customers struggle with is, well, they call it the fatigue, right? So the idea fatigue. And we know trends are going in and out of fashion on a daily basis for the second almost. So we have those strategic players, those creative players who are always on top of that. And I think that's something that we really pride ourselves, and we really feel that makes us shine, between the competition and the different platforms and options that are out there, is that we are on top of that game and we are strategically creating, calculating, coming up with those ideas. And it's funny because I mentioned team growth earlier in the wrong context, but in this context, the team growth is incredible, and we're constantly bringing on new minds and bodies and expertise to really keep those ideas fresh and stimulated. Like I said, I think it's just something we very much pride ourselves on, and having a very extensive team of specialists that are able to keep on top of that, those creative ideas and concepts. So, and I think it's a big reason why a lot of customers come to us, right? They have to churn out, going to the points where you were discussing with Chris a minute ago, like having those wins, and you have to churn out a lot of content to test, to do that A/B testing, to make sure that it's fresh and on top of the trends. So you've got to have an extensive team behind you. Even in-house with extensive teams, you're going to have that idea fatigue. So we are on top of that, and we're very proud of that.
Huge, huge. No, it makes so much sense. You need the resourcing in order to do the job well. And I guess what I'm now curious about is like getting into the tactics. So let's imagine there's a brand out there and they want to start working with you. It's almost like, what can they expect? So it's what is step one of them onboarding with y'all? And then it turns into, I'll follow up with like tactical questions, but I'm assuming it's some version of an onboarding form, but talk me through how that looks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the kickoff calls are pretty extensive because we want to understand our clients the best way possible. We want to understand what their unique selling propositions are, what they really want to focus on in terms of the messaging, what are the features that are performing the best. And then we also want to research the market as well as the competition to see what's performing well. And we want to be able to dissect that and to give already some ideas to our advertisers in terms of what are the things that we're seeing in the markets that we have a strong belief that they're going to work, right? So following that, we get to work on building the creative strategy component of things. So we do it with a matrix that we have, in which allows us to write down creative hypotheses. And basically, we present a plan depending on the volume of videos that we're able to produce. What's going to be plan A, plan B, plan C, or what are the steps? And then how are we going to be measuring those results, and what are we going to do based on what the results are saying? So the onboarding part is one in which we really want to take our time because we don't want to rush things. We want to make sure that the end product is really well aligned with what the client is looking for, and that it reaches the objective that they've set or they've mentioned on the brief that they want to achieve. Also, something that's very important that maybe for DTC is a bit more straightforward is the journey of the user, right? So how does the user following that ad end up converting into a paying customer, what are all the steps that they need to take, and what are all the channels in which they're going to be interacting with your brand up until the moment that they make that purchase. And we want to align everything that I just mentioned with the funnel as well, so there's consistency and we don't lose any conversion rates whenever we send clients into a funnel that it's not really making too much sense with what we're saying creatively. So yeah, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of competitive research, and then it comes, of course, the part of the creativity, which is to me the most fun part of my job for sure.
I love how everything plugs into a matrix that's ultimately hypothesis driven. So
Yeah,
that seems so important in the process. And then you added right at the end there of being able to look at competitors, but also your own information. So what I am curious about is for anyone who catches one of these clips or is listening in on the app side, it's like,
yeah.
where are you going to basically start analyzing information? Is it like reviews? Is it Reddit? Where does it look like essentially?
Absolutely everywhere. Reviews is one. Reddit. What are people saying? What are the hashtags from that industry on TikTok? What are the top videos like in that hashtag? What are people commenting about organically? What the team is saying? What type of negative reviews have they gotten, and why? We want to look at absolutely everything. And then, of course, we go into post purchase survey data. That's a really good one. And then we also go into spy tools like PP ads and motion as well to do some of the research on what the competition is doing and what are some of the top performing ads lately from an impressions perspective or from a pure performance perspective. And from that, we're able to come up with some of the creative hypotheses. But Evan, at the end of the day, like this all sounds fancy, but the most random piece of content is always going to be the one that gets the most amount of spend. There's no strategizing against that. That's always going to be the case. It's frustrating, but it is what it is.
You build out these beautiful hypotheses to say, yep, this is the one. This is going to make the money. Tanks and some random ass one just takes off. You're like, okay, what the heck can we learn from this?
Oh, 100%. And we've had cases in which, we've had clients say, I don't like this ad at all. I don't want to use it. We say, you know what, it's fine. I'll redo it. Just test it out. Those are always usually the winners. It's happened more times than I can count. You just never know what's going to work. So it's not an exact science, far from it, but it definitely helps you narrow down what your testing is going to look like and not just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, but put a bit of a methodology behind the way that you approach this.
For sure. There needs to be a method and you need to quantify it. So it has to go hand in hand, but I agree on the randomness that can start to happen. The next question I have here for either of you in all honesty is like you've conducted all of this research to start ingesting like a fire hose what's going on. Now you have all of these ideas. Before it's like we get to apply our creativity, the real question in my mind becomes like how do you prioritize which ideas that you work on? And I'm wondering if you have a method to the madness there.
Oh, that is a really good question because we also don't know how to answer this one. Whenever we present a matrix, we wanna have as many pain points as possible and as many different ways to tackle that specific pain point and as many different concepts and angles. But there's a lot of ways that you can approach a first time testing, right? You can either go really hard on one specific pain point and just do all the testing with different ways of communicating that pain point, or you can expand a bit your testing strategy to just try and test as many different pain points as you can possibly can, trying to target as many different personas as you can. And there's no right or wrong answer here. It's a matter of feeling and what you think you are going to get the most amount of success with. And it ultimately leads to the client making that decision. But there's really not a right or wrong approach here. At the end of the day, the more you test, the better the chances of finding a winner. So the more you can increase your testing, then it's always going to be the best outcome possible.
Yeah, it feels like there's a budget conversation in there too. Because it's like with the budget, if it is smaller, it's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to hone into your like key value prop and key pain point and tackle that? Or are you trying to cast a broad net? And it might make sense to be more focused if the budget is more focused. So I'm sure that's part of the dialogue, but you guys are the big dogs. Got the ones who are spending a bunch. So it's just like, let's do whatever you want. Let's figure it out.
No, 100%. I mean, you can go after a persona or after a problem solution that you know it's working really well, and then you're just working on iterating on that because you're already knowing that it's working really well. It also depends on whether there's one ad that gets all the spend or whether it's hard to just find a winner overall, because I can tell you different things, and your approach to that could also be different as well. So we also want to analyze what the campaigns are doing at the moment to see if it's more a matter of creative fatigue, or if it's more a matter we just haven't found the right audience yet, and then we got to start targeting or testing with a wider audience size and just more diversity in terms of who we're targeting. So it also depends on what the performance data is saying and what the results that the client is getting are coming from.
Both of you have mentioned fatigue a couple different times, and I want to get into that, but I also need to get my bearings first. So from my understanding, you all are focusing on developing the creative. Are you ever running the media for them? Yes? No?
No.
Okay. No. And then what I am curious about though is in that case is do you have a perspective on how they should structure their creative tests and how to run your creative essentially?
We can give you advice on how we would do it or how we've been consulted on doing it. One of the first articles that we released on our blog was about how to do creative testing on TikTok, but not everyone is okay with that way of testing, and their own teams have their own specific way of testing. So it's very hard to advise on something that they feel very strongly about, but we still send them the article and we can say, hey, look, this is the proper way. Or not the proper way, but the way that we've seen the most amount of success with testing. But Evan, you mentioned before, it's a matter of budget as well. So depending on the budget that you have, you can only allocate a certain amount to assets and do such in-depth testing compared to if you have a limited budget as well. Also, if you have a limited budget, you're not going to have enough creatives to start with. So the structure there is going to be a lot different. The most aggressive way of testing, I would say, and when you have high budgets and you have a big volume of creatives coming into you on a regular basis, is to create a separate environment for that testing. That's typically in the sense of a creative testing campaign in which you're forcing, especially on TikTok, you're forcing the campaigns to spend an equal amount of money on each of those assets and cap it at that. So you're giving an equal chance to every single asset that you input there. And then you're looking more at upper funnel metrics that can give you an indicator of whether that ad could potentially become a winner in the long term or not. Mainly because with a small amount of budget, getting ROAS or CPA data is going to be very hard to find. But you can see already from the CTR, hook rates, hold rates, initial events that are happening, whether or not the ad is going to be a winner. And then you graduate those into the main campaign, and then you let the main campaign kind of compete out against each other, and you repeat this process on an ongoing basis.
And then in the testing campaign, are you turning that ad off when you graduate it, or is it all on at the same time and like let's just see how it plays out and don't kill the vibe?
That's actually a really good point. So that makes a lot of sense. The thing is, if you're planning to input more creatives into that campaign, and then you're having all the budget going to the winners, they're going to cannibalize all the spend. So you have to set up some rules that can allow you to keep on growing that one, but also keep testing the other ones. I haven't really thought it out of that way. We normally just graduate it and remove it from that campaign. Mm-hmm. But that definitely makes sense because they've learned already, they've optimized, and they're starting to perform well. You might as well just see it out, right?
Maybe like just dupe the ad groups and like have multiple ad groups and then have ad group budgets and like run it out that way. I'm always curious because I've been talking to a lot of people about like structuring accounts in the best ways. So I'm always curious about like what people are experiencing.
That is really interesting. Have they recommended doing this to you in the past?
On Meta for D2C buyers, yes. So like I had someone on here, his name is Marin. He ran ads for like the Udi while they were scaling like quite a bit. And his recommendation is like, yep, separate scaling campaign, but run everything ABO meta-wise and then duplicate your ad sets. But then when you graduate something, just leave it on. Like you don't want to kill performance. Just have it be in its own ad set. And then you're just creating a new ad set if you want to introduce the new creative. and you still
Okay.
control budget there. So
So
it was cool. I don't run ads anymore as much. So I'm just like, I'm always trying to like ingest from other people.
100%. Yeah, me neither. It's been a year since I've done proper media buying, but that's a really interesting one. So creative testing campaign, and then a separate ad group when you want to test new ones. But if you find some winners, you can just leave it as a standalone ad group in that testing campaign, and scale it to the point where you can even compete with the main.
For sure.
Interesting.
And then Nicola, question for you here is like, in this process, we've talked so much about TikTok. When people come to you, are they specifically looking and saying, I want to unlock TikTok, help me unlock TikTok? Or is it more general where it's like, I need great creative for all my paid social accounts?
Well, actually, I think maybe Chris is better positioned to answer this question. But obviously, from being actually a customer as well, actually, when I didn't mention this earlier in my introduction, but I was actually a customer when I first got introduced to Content Jet. So I've actually been, and obviously coming from a background of 20 years, in marketing, and I can tell from the consumer standpoint. So imagine me, I'm that head of marketing in that company. I'm coming to Content Jet because I'm over. I want to do these ads. There's a load of different reasons they come. It could be, you keep saying this word fatigue as you keep mentioning, but obviously there's the idea concepts and needing that extra support. There's the only capacity that they have internally, right, with their own team and reaching their cap. Being on top of those trends and stuff takes a high volume, and obviously trying to get the best results, trying to get the quality. And going back to your initial question on TikTok, I think from a consumer perspective, we want to be, as a head of marketing, we want to be on top of all the channels that are happening right now. And TikTok is a space that is a la mode, as they say, especially here in Montreal. But it's very fashionable. It's the space to be. It's making impact. It's powerful. So there is that mindset where UGC does dominate that space. But I think, Chris, you can lead on this and continue to add to this. But like, we don't want to forget about the spaces, and I think that's part of as well the educational aspect and making sure that they're informed and stuff. But like, look for the company that when I met Content Jet that I was coming from, the first reaction was TikTok, yes. But then let's not forget the power of Meta and the different age groups and the different statistics and the different consumers, right? They're all on different platforms. They're all on different activity levels. So it really, again, probably goes down to who the customer is as well, depending on what space they feel that they need to dominate. But Chris, I'll let you continue on what kind of customers we see at the moment. And TikTok is a big player for us, for sure, though.
No, 100%. I think you nailed it, Nick. We of course, being a TikTok marketing partner, being in the TTCX program, we get a lot of business from TikTok directly and its clients. But we're seeing Meta push very, very hard now on increasing creative volume, increasing creative testing, having more placements available for the ads to show up on. So it's starting to become a very key pillar in the strategy of Meta, and I'm hearing this from the account managers and all the initiatives that are happening within Meta, that this is definitely growing. And when I talk to old colleagues at Google and just asking how that YouTube Shorts inventory is coming along, they've been mentioning that it's growing in a substantial way. So more and more we're seeing more YouTube Shorts requests, more Meta Reels requests, Snapchat as well, and also content that is just not having to do with any of these channels, and they're living in all these different places. And the conclusion from this is that short form video content as a medium is here to stay, and we're not going to be seeing it only in these networks, but just all over the place. I don't know if you remember, Evan, maybe 2-3 months ago, if you were to go into the LinkedIn app, there was a tab that was a video app. And it was like slowly becoming a TikTok. They removed it now. I think it's probably because they saw it becoming too TikTok-y for them. But they're definitely leaning a lot more into video as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that still evolves, and we're gonna see more channels in which short form video content is gonna start appearing.
100%, I'm with you. And I remember that I was like trying to play with it and trying to get videos out to see if we could milk it, like early stages of the algo. I guess the real question in there for me is like per platform customization or personalization. So when you all are thinking about building out assets, would you treat a TikTok differently from how you treat an Instagram, for example?
Oh, 100%. TikTok is a lot faster. So TikTok is a lot more hooky in the sense that you need to catch that attention really fast. You need really engaging hooks. The video needs to move in a much faster pace. We're seeing that we can get away with slower paced videos on Meta, for example. Don't ask me why, because I'm not going to be able to explain. But we do see different audience behavior in both platforms. And while at the first try for any given client, we're going to do the same assets, 916, everything in the same zone, in the safe zone 4x5, so you can run it across both platforms. The performance data is going to take us in a different direction on TikTok and on Meta. So we're going to end up creating a different strategy altogether for how we are approaching Meta than from TikTok, based on a couple rounds of testing. So we do see different behaviors, and we do end up creating different style videos depending on where the platform, on which platform they're going into.
That is so interesting. So there might be an instance when you launch the same creative on both platforms, but then you start to notice that on TikTok, it serves like a younger demographic where it's like faster cuts that they'll want in the future. Whereas on Meta, that same thing will target an older demographic who wants slower variations at that
Exactly.
point. Yeah?
Exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah. That's why I don't love when advertisers test on Meta, and then based on the results on that testing, they move it to TikTok. Like, I get why they do that, but at the same time, I feel like it's actually two different worlds, and you should do testing in each environment on its own, because the behaviors are very different.
So now we got to talk about creative fatigue, because we've built the research, we've prioritized the work and built our hypotheses, and now we've launched in a creative testing structure. Now is the time to start looking at the data to tell us what the heck's going on here. And this is where we talk about fatigue. We've heard it maybe 10 times on this call already. I guess the main thing that I'm curious about there is, like, people always ask me, Evan, how do I know if it's fatiguing? So it's like, how do you measure it, essentially? And it's like, how do I get ahead of it so I don't experience this? I think those are the two biggest things that I always get asked by brands, and curious to know if either of you have thoughts.
Nick, you want to take that?
Well, excuse me, clearing my throat, but yeah, definitely. I think I like to think I have the two vision. Like, going back to my last point, that I've been the company that's needed the UGC content, and now I'm actually in the company that's producing it. And from a consumer, from the actual customer point, you can get bogged down with a lot of noise. You can actually be like, oh my God, if you're in this space, you're scrolling all the platforms yourself, you can be really heavily bogged down with, oh my God, there's a new trend, there's a new trend, there's a new trend. And that can become a distraction or a focus. And you think you need to produce at the volume that the trends are coming out. There is that element, and that is important. But it's also all, like, going back to your point, the data. It's all about the data. We have to look at that, see how the interactions, the engagement. And I think we often talk about, like, obviously the data that the obvious data that they give us, which is the click-through rates and things like that. But the data of engagement and the time in which a video is watched, I think, plays an important aspect as well in understanding how our consumer is engaging with that specific content itself. And I think that gives us a better, if I was a consumer, if I was the head of marketing, that gives us better data to work off than to just say, okay, this video is dead, it's dying. Let's not just look at the interactions that we're getting, but let's look at the whole picture. It's sometimes we can either get bogged down with the trends, bogged down with the visual data, but we have to go into the engagement, the likes, the time in which someone is consuming the data. So, and I think it goes a little bit back to what Chris was saying with the way it's presented on different platforms, how long it is, the length. Sometimes you can restructure the same video in a different way and it will suddenly perform. And there is some science, there is some logic behind that, but you have to play around with these things. So it's not black and white, unfortunately. I think the best recommendation I could give to any listeners is just don't get bogged down and think that you have to keep up on top of the trends tomorrow, because they do have a good space of time to produce and work and run, and don't look at the surface level data. Look at the actual movement and interactions within those specific ads themselves as well. So I think it's more recommendations I'm giving, but but hopefully that's useful.
Yeah, it's super helpful. I guess what I'm curious about is like without getting caught up in the trends, because I hear you. What you really want is to have longevity. And it's like trends will be micro
Yeah.
moments where it's like you're popular one day but forgotten the next. So within that same lens, and then we'll jump back to creative fatigue. It's like how would you recommend that brands think more long term so that they could actually have their creative last longer?
Yeah. And I think this is a hard one too, because there's another mindset. There's a little bit of education to be done in terms of UGC. There's that, are we making curated, beautiful ads, which was, the old way of doing things, or are we making this UGC content, which feels real and relatable to the consumer, so they're actually like able to position themselves using that product, and actually, being in that element and in that universe. So there's when head of marketing, I keep using that as an example because that's the last role I had, but basically when they visualize as content that's going to be used over a long period of time, they think of that very rich, expensive, curated product, that video that is really well, there's a lot of investment in terms of time, script writing. It's an overview, it's a demonstration, it's a presentation and an introduction into their product or their offering. But we still need to keep that in mind, that we need to do a UGC. And again, it's like understanding that it's positioning, producing a relatable visual for the consumer. So it's really about, if really position the video in a way that isn't necessarily jumping on a trend where it's a specific sound or a specific movement or a specific dance, but it's really about making it's that emotion. That's what I think this hits it on the hits the nail on the head. It's the emotional connection, being able the consumer to put themselves emotionally in the context of using that product. And I think if you think with that mindset, instead of thinking, okay, I need to do that dance because everyone's doing that dance right now, what is the emotional creation and connection I'm creating with my product through these videos? And they're raw, they're organic, they're real, they're consumer based. Think that way rather than being really fashionable and cool. Being relatable, I think, is the word, what we need to look for in our content that we're producing
Yeah, I
today.
couldn't agree more, Nick. And if I may add something here, Evan, it's about the messaging as well, and how you are targeting different pain points and how you're solving this with the messaging that you're utilizing in your ads. So hooks and trends, they might be allowing you to elongate the life that an ad has and just keep it running for longer and performing well, but the core or the body of the video is what you really should be focusing on, so you can keep that messaging line alive until it stops performing and until you have to come up with new ones. But focusing on how to solve a specific problem to your audience is always going to be the best strategy in the long term.
And I feel like a through line that I'm hearing whenever I hear emotion and it's like solving specific problems for your specific audience, the most extreme version is a persona. So it's like the longevity comes from knowing who you are targeting. Because if you know who you're targeting, you know what their emotional motivators are, you know what their pain points are, you know how to solve it for them. And then
Yep.
you could even loop trends into that, but you know who you're targeting. It's not just hopping on the wave for the sake of hopping on the wave. So
Yeah,
that's what I
100%.
hear is the through line that I think is super empowering.
100%. I think that's marketing it as a whole. As not as well as the persona, the better the results you're gonna have, and whatever messaging in any format that you push, because you can really get into their psyche, into their mindset, and provoke those emotions with those solutions that you provide to their problems. So 100%.
Yeah, one of the things, and you guys have been so generous with your time. So I have like one final question that comes to mind for me here. It's like I've basically been thinking as you both have been talking through this about like, okay, creative fatigue. Like, what does that actually mean? We've talked about personas, we've talked about pain points, that type of stuff. The other thing that comes to mind for me are just like the stages of awareness. So it's the idea of somebody who is like problem unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, all the way to finish at that point. And that's basically a layer on top of any persona work or any creative work that you're doing. So in your world, when you're developing creative, are there specific stages of that awareness funnel that you'll lean into more than others? Or how do you think about it in general, if there's any opinions that you might have?
No, 100%. I mean, first of all, you got to be really well aligned with the performance marketing team, the UA team as well. How are they setting up these campaigns? Are you doing awareness, consideration, and then performance? Are you going to do some retargeting as well? Because the way that you're going to be communicating in different stages of the funnel is going to have to be different as well. You're not going to go straight to performance, really try and getting that download or that click or that purchase, from that single ad, but you're mostly educating the market on what the product is actually about. And if it's more of an upper funnel stage type of ad, we're going to be focusing more on teaching people what the product is about, what problems it solves, trying to connect in a way that's very emotional, as Nicola just said, and then bringing them down the funnel towards the path to purchase. So it definitely defines a lot how we approach that. And it is quite different depending on the stage of the funnel that you're trying to target. So very important to be aligned between the creative team and the UA team to really nail this down.
Love that. Love that. I think why this part's so important as I'm thinking through it is like kind of going back to the concept of creative fatigue. What I'm really thinking the goal of ads, and I've had these like different conversations, when it comes to ads, it's like they're doing two things. They're either capturing existing demand or they're creating new demand.
There you go.
So when you're talking about the unaware and like targeting them with more education, you're creating new demand, which might mean that ad looks like it's shitty. Like the metrics might tell you that it's shitty. But guess what? When the actual ads that you have closer to the bottom of your funnel that are capturing the demand start to jet up and they're actually crushing it, you know there is some delineation and some basically trend lines that you can start to find. And the main reason that I share this is I'm just thinking about creative fatigue for anyone who's out there. Cause like, I think the place that I'm landing in all of these conversations is the idea of like using your frequency to start quantifying it. So it's like being able to say, is your frequency starting to climb over time? Because if so, you're just hitting the same audience over and over and over again at that point. Whereas if you're keeping it lower, you're hopefully getting new eyeballs in that process. Cost per 1,000 comes to mind for me too. It's like that's probably cost per 1,000 impressions could work well. But I'm just thinking like quantifiably, if anyone is listening in and like finds it interesting, let me know if there's a correlation. I'm very curious.
Oh, 100%.
Well, I think you
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think you made a really good point there. Like if we're at brand awareness, we're making them aware. We're not necessarily looking for a conversion at this stage. And this is something I've pushed throughout my whole career, wherever, whatever element I've been working on, is that it's a several touch point process as well. It's multi-channel, touching them in several ways, several times a day. So if we are making them aware that just existence and we're just taking a product or service to market, we have to, and then follow that up with additional messaging and touch points before we get to the conversion stage. So that's something really important for anyone who's jumping into this and doing these things to take into consideration, especially looking at their data, because it might not be a true reflection of the impact that you're making out there if you just take it at face value, because you're actually still making an impact on the market space because you're letting people know that you exist. And then when you get to the next stage within the funnel, you can start converting, and that's where you wouldn't have got those results later on in the funnel if you hadn't really introduced yourself from the beginning. So I think that's really, really important. A lot of companies forget that marketing isn't just pushing one piece or one message or one channel out there. You have to keep retouching people in several different ways. Just think of ourselves as consumers, right? We often see something, think, oh, that's cool, but we don't necessarily buy it in that moment. It takes us a second, third ad before we actually take action. Maybe because we're scrolling while we're doing something else. We're all like moving at 150 miles an hour. So we need to be reminded often. We're often like, how many of you, I don't know who's listening to this, save like 50 videos a day to look at later, but never ever look at them? I'm very, very guilty of that. So it's like we have to put that second video out there that pushes that second conversion through. So we don't actually have really clear, good data that shows the impact of those low-hanging fruit videos that look like on the surface level they're not performing, but maybe without that, the second video wouldn't have converted, if that makes sense. So I think it's really powerful to know that and to think about.
Definitely. Now this has me thinking, and like I want to go get answers after this. Like I'm just curious because so many people know this intrinsically, but it's like, what is the connective tissue to tell that story? And I think that's why people run hold tests or incrementality tests to like understand what the impact is. But that's channel level, which is interesting. I feel like I just want to go talk to people now and be like, how are you tying this stuff together? Like, what are you looking at? This is so interesting at that point. Cause I 100% agree, agree, Nick. Like that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Guys, this has been incredible. Like, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been awesome. I'm wondering if both of you, maybe Chris, you can kick us off. If you have any final words to leave with the audience.
Man, you're putting me on the spot here. No, I mean, I would just say just keep that volume up, keep testing new things, keep testing different messaging, different pain points, and get really, really creative with how you communicate those different solutions to those pain points. Don't be afraid to go super, super native. I'm really disappointed when brands really stick to the old school way of doing things and they want to just do polished ad. Just go native and don't really pay too much attention to it. You know, one of your guys, Barry Hott, says make ugly ads. They're not ugly. They're ads that are going to be watched and then they're going to be forgotten in a second. So just think out of the box, be super creative, and just have fun with it.
I love it. Nick, anything on your end that you want to leave with our audience?
Oh, 100%. I've been nonstop with my recommendations. I'm probably making people sick here. But I just wish people had sent me the message when I was early in my career, right? But if you're head of marketing, head of growth, you're the creative strategist or the person who is actually in charge of creating these elements, you know, or you're running the creative team within your company to run these ads. I think that maybe because I feel like apps have got it a little bit and they're really on top of the curve. But e-com, I think you need a little bit more, work in this field. But don't overthink your videos. Get dirty. Get into UGC. Stop over curating. Get those relatable content. It's for a lot of brands who are really curated and really beautiful, and they want to be up there with the top brands. And I don't blame you. And there's still an element of importance in that. I'm not taking that away from that. But they're scared almost to UGC, and or they just feel like, going back to Chris's point when earlier he said sometimes the ads that they don't like are the ones that perform the best. And I can imagine that the reason they don't like them is because they're not so curated and clean. But that's what people are looking for right now. They want that the average Joe, the consumer, isn't curated and clean. We want to see ourselves in the situation. We want to say, that is me. That's me using that product. And I think to all those out there who are in those roles, let go. I know it's hard, but get your hands dirty, get into UGC, and think that emotional contact to get a connection again, and don't be scared of it. You can have those curated contents, and there's times and moments for it, and the intro maybe on your website and things like that. But the UGC is really making an impact and a movement right now. So don't be afraid, and obviously reach out to us. We can help you.
Definitely. And if I may add just the last point here, and Evan, you guys said it yourself in your Creative Trends report, which, by the way, good job. I completely devoured that report in like 20 minutes. It was so good. Leverage humor. I'm a very comedy guy. I love to get a good laugh, and when I go to TikTok, I'm not thinking of what product am I going to buy right now, and what ad am I going to watch right now. So just make it entertaining and get people to laugh, and that for sure is going to have a really good effect.
I think you just said something really important. Let's be honest, social media isn't really where we're meant to be selling things. People go there for entertainment. They go there to be drawn into the experience. So that's what we've got to do as if we want to put our products and services out there as well. We have to join what the people are there for. It's to be entertained. So let's entertain them.
I love it, guys. That is incredible. That is incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining me today. It means the world. It means the world. I'm going to talk to you both really soon. Okay?
Thanks, Evan.
Thank you.
Most definitely. I'll talk to you soon. Later. Oh man, everybody. Shout out to my guys, Emmett and Jess in the chat, by the way. Emmett, you know what it is, man. All love. Jess, you freaking troll. Last hour. Here's my summary coming up right on the end here. So when they had both talked about there of just like the ugly ads, I have two thoughts. The first one is a common theme that you all have heard throughout all of our different guests is the idea of being able to blend into the feed. Something where it feels quite organic and an experience that people don't look at as an ad. That is so empowering. So doing that well is very important. And then the second thing that comes to me is that with Chris and Nick, they specialize again on those apps. Like they're the app clients that they're working with spend millions and millions of dollars on apps, right? So when it comes to D2C ecom, why I've always been so freaking impressed is because the people who usually evangelize the idea of like the cleanest cut creative that doesn't look crappy are usually larger brands. But D2C e-commerce companies are quite scrappy, in my opinion. I know they have a strong sense of brand identity, but they're pretty open when it comes to their advertising. And what I love about that is it starts to create a group of people who are like the elite of the elite in terms of performance marketing prowess. Because you're in a spot when it's like your margins are tight, you need to be freaking profitable. How do we make it happen? And that's why I was so happy to have Chris and Nick join us on today's show, because both of them bring a different perspective. So actually working with those different app style clients and what that starts to mean. And it's so fascinating when we're thinking about the journey and the approach. A lot of overlap, but also some differences along the way. So I hope that was helpful. Yeah. See you in the chat. Thanks. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Okay. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the party, y'all. This is Thumbstop Live. Thumbstop Live is live every Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, and we're streaming across a bunch of different platforms. Catch us on LinkedIn, YouTube Live, Instagram Live, as well as Twitter or X, wherever you're tapping in. What up? The one change this week is Friday. We will not be streaming. It is my wife's birthday, so we are going to be celebrating together. I live a life. Can you believe it? I know. I can't believe it. Jeez. But while we wait for our next guest to join, why I bring up this is Thumbstop Live is because if you haven't been here before, in between guests is always my reminder for myself and for you all to stretch, get moving if you can. I have the privilege of having a standing desk. If you don't, that's okay. My ask for you is to just get up in your room, get moving. They say, come on, get up and get ready. A little Sean Desmond for you at that point. Toronto in the building. Hey, happy birthday to her. I'll send the wishes. I'm trying to put it out on Twitter too and see if it goes viral, because it's always those tweets that you don't expect to work well that always get the most viewership. So I'm like, if it's one of those ones and it's not one of these like value posts, Jesus. But everybody, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for the next guest that we're gonna have. It's a funny story. In all honesty, I've been doing Thumbstop Live for coming up on 2 months at this point, which is awesome. I've had a lot of fun doing this, but there's been different people in our community who start to engage. Jess, shout out to you, right? No, you're always here. Emmett, of course, we're in the DMs talking to each other. But then there's also Alyssa. Alyssa literally did a summary of one of our conversations that I was having with Shireen from Ilia Beauty, where it was just like so perfectly summarized, just talking about the human element of why Shireen is how she is. And I was like, damn, that's so cool. Like, I love that. So I started DMing Alyssa back and forth, like, yo, what's going on? Good to meet you. Like, I got to get you up here. And she's like, yeah, I would love to join, but can we meet each other first? Like, can we just feel each other out and catch a vibe? See how it is? So it's so cool because we got to jump on a chat and just be like, what's the energy? Like, same vibe, different vibe. Is this going to go well? And from that first chat, I feel like both of us have been locked in. So I'm so happy, y'all. I'm so happy, y'all, to be able to welcome Alyssa to the stage. So let's give her a round of applause.
That was the nicest intro ever. And I've only met you once, but just seeing your personality on all the calls, I'm not surprised.
But I feel like that's how it goes. When it comes to a thing of energy, it's like even through a screen, you can feel it. So when we're talking about intros,
Yeah.
I kind of just told our story, like of how we met more than anything. And it's just like our first call, you were outside of like a freaking convention center or some shit. And you're like, I'm taking this call. And I'm like, oh, she's crazy. Like, let's go.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta get away from these people. The only empty space is at the trunk of my car. It's too hot to go inside.
That's so funny. How have you been? It's good to see you.
It's been, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine coming up on the holidays, like you can kind of feel the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
So it's like chill, but also I know like something's coming.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it's every brand, every agency owner I chat with, it's a similar story. Uh, there's so much that I want to get into with you, of course, but I am
Yeah,
wondering if we could start nice and easy. For those who might not be as familiar with you, give us the quick tell us about yourself, professionally, personally, whatever you're open to sharing, and we can kind of take from
for
there if that
sure.
works. Cool.
Okay, my deepest, darkest secret is no, I'm just kidding.
That's a hook, though. That's a hook. We got to throw that
It
in
is.
somewhere.
It is. It's somewhere in there. I haven't thought about it. I'll workshop it a little bit before
I
I
like
post
that.
it on
I like
Twitter.
that. I like that.
But I would say that most people know me online as the person running the flows for Breeze, just because I'm very vocal about it. On the side, I do work as a retention lead for a retention agency, Capture Box, which is like by far my favorite agency to work with. I've been a freelance for the last 5 years, doing email and SMS, and I've worked for probably 5 different agencies. Um, so I love them. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Been in the weeds for a long time working with, I did the count a couple weeks ago, like, the CV count of like all the places that you've worked at and like how many people you've worked with. And I think it's 30 plus brands over the last 5 years, which is insane to think about because that wasn't even a possibility in my head in the beginning. I was like, how am I going to get there? How am I going to get to more experience, more brands, more problems to solve? And to be here is, I'm so grateful. There's
I
not a better
love
word
it.
to describe it.
No, for sure, for sure. Like being able to reflect and appreciate the moments, like those are so empowering to be able to get to that point. So, like, big ups to you for sure. Big ups to you for sure.
Yeah. And it was really the Twitter community that supported that from day one that I was posting. And I remember like the first viral post was, I'm 21 and my goal is to make 3K working with e-commerce brands that I love. And people were so supportive, even people that I looked up to in the space. And that's why I love it, that everyone's really generous with their time and knowledge, given, of course, effort, but more so in other spaces that I've been in.
For sure, for sure. Now, what I am curious about is like your journey has gotten you up to these 30 brands and like working quite closely now with like some big dogs in the game. What I'm
Yeah.
curious about is just like when you look back, you are my representation of when like I think of like the Gen Z perspective. I know you don't act like one all the time, but you put it on Twitter. So I'm like, okay,
I
this is the
am
perspective.
technically Gen Z, unfortunately.
That's unfortunately. Nah, embrace at that point. Embrace at that point. So what I'm curious about is when you've been thinking about your career and like the steps that you've taken so far, have you been intentional being like, I know I want to jump into like agency side, work with as many brands as I possible. Then I hopefully jump to like a little bit more closer of a relationship. How has that process looked for you?
I like to think about the motivations at first. Like it was less about the tangible outcome because I was an art major. And of course, that comes with its own stigma, especially being in an Asian household. So I'm sure most households, but definitely an Asian household. Um, so I graduated, and the only thing on my mind, like, I love art. I love doing it. I love being in the studio. It's fantastic. But I do know the reality of that situation because I have been selling art since high school, that it's really difficult. And I just didn't have the skills to sell myself at that point. So I was like, how do you get the skills to sell yourself? Oh, marketing. It's a literal correlation there. So I came out with one, I think that's the easiest adjacent that I could do with, my background. And then two, I loved traveling. So I needed a job that allowed me to travel and work. And naively, just being young and, not having any generational wealth, I'm like, okay, what doesn't have a ceiling to it? What doesn't have a cap to how much you can make with it? So marketing was like the first best step. And then as the years went on, the intrinsic motivation from, lifestyle turned more into what can fund the projects that I want to build in the future while also being aligned with my values now, which is like working with people that I'm aligned with and doing good work for them. And I guess the leading indicator of that is working on my skill set and making sure that I can actually provide the value that I say that I can. So TLDR, the first motivator was very much like personal and lifestyle focus, and then it turned into present and future focus, but I'm sure that just naturally develops over time.
Yeah, there is clarity that builds, but it's so interesting that you got it quite early because I feel like society might push it in the opposite of like almost force it to
Mm.
be career first. And you're like, wait a second, like I'm following a path that I don't even want to follow. Like, why am I
Yeah.
doing that? Right. So it's
Yeah.
like you were able to flip it in a sense of being like, no, 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 like I want to live this life the way that I want to live it. And then now you've gotten some refinement to say like, what is the
Yeah.
overlap between career and like my personal life in that point, which is quite interesting,
Yeah, I guess it's not very conventional. Definitely inspired by my mom who like really
Shout
nailed
out moms.
down. Yeah, shout out to mom because she really nailed down the fact that you can do anything as long as you're resourceful. And just being in the creative field, I think just these philosophies of thinking combine to make me believe, yeah, I don't have experience, but that could be my edge to find creative solutions to the problems that I'm facing, which is I'm young, I have no experience. I want this life for myself. How do I get it with the resources that I have? And then from there, a wild roller coaster career-wise, especially because like, I worked a lot of odd jobs before. Like, fortunately, it was also instilled early on, like, high school, I had a job. All throughout college, I had a job, and they were all a lot of odd jobs in between to create the foundation for freelancing, in my opinion, because I wasn't just like a 1 9 to 5. I did multiple at some point of, like, really weird ones, like really weird. Just as an example, there's like these co-op kitchens where different businesses have cooks in the same kitchen, making stuff for their company. And I was there, like packaging. You know how you see in movies of like guys, quickly packaging goods and like sending them
Yeah.
out, and it's just a line or whatever.
Yeah.
I was doing that in the back with like my hairnet and
Nice.
things. And that was like on one day of the weekend. The other day of the weekend, I worked that same kitchen for another brand, which is like a patisserie, and was folding croissants and selling them at the farmer's market later that day. Um, so I think those were just foundational skills to where freelance was the optimal option that like helped what I wanted in the moment. And then it's just snowballed into what it is today, which is like you said, I'm working with people that people know. And it's so surreal. And I'm so happy to be amongst, you guys.
I love it. I love it. Now, the one piece that I'm curious about is like you've had so much exposure to so many different brands. The first piece of context I guess I'm looking for is like level of depth. So it's like when you are working with brands, like how deep do you usually go? Like is the situation you're in now like the deepest you've gone with a brand, or is that typical? What does it look like?
It's definitely gotten deeper over time. When I was freelancing alone, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was in a silo of my own, not collaborating with other email SMS marketers that you would find in an agency. So it's like I'm not proud of the person I was then because it was very money focused, and it's
Mm,
easier to get the first struggle as a freelancer is getting clients, right? So that ends
Yeah.
up being disproportionately larger in size than the actual skills that you're learning, which are after the fact. When you get these clients, then you come up with these problems, and the problems are only known if, one, you have the skill to be aware of them, or two, client gives you feedback so you can get the awareness to address them. So it wasn't until I worked, silo and also with a few agencies to understand, like, oh, I'm missing a huge chunk of this skill set, because before it was just implementing SMS, email and SMS campaigns, which is great because I loved thinking, like, scouring the internet of all the customers' reviews, comments, or whatever to figure out what kind of content they would like. But that's very different than the full picture of understanding, what's happening on the acquisition side, what's working there, what does inventory look like, what products should we be pushing, and and then, like, the cohorts of people that are not, for lack of a better word, lacking, or where we should put a little bit more TLC in, like understanding where to find that information, because the brands I were working with in the beginning were small. They didn't have all these extra platforms like Triple Whale or Northbeam, or I didn't know to ask for access to Shopify or Google Analytics, things like that. So it kind of evolved to now where the deepest that I've gone is getting some, but not all, visibility to other channels, but at least being able to ask questions when they're available. And then when it comes to the analytics side, it's gotten a lot deeper. Like, before it was just week over week or month over month. Now it's year over year. What are the trends? What are the segments we're using last year versus this year? Who are the people in our list last year versus this year? What products are different? Like, what is receiving the most take rate? Trying to predict the future based off of this information, which is, like, not guaranteed. Um, and in addition to that, like, knowing what to test, like year 1 to 3, it was like, oh, we test subject lines. And then in the year 3 to 5, it's like, no, let's test the offer on the front end. Let's test, timing on when this information is being sent out. How can we accelerate 0 purchases to first purchase? How do we accelerate the first to the second purchase without losing them? So the questions have changed, and the focus has changed dramatically over the years.
Makes so much sense. Early on, it's just like get paid to learn almost. And then it evolves into like
Exactly.
you could really start to add the value there. And with all this learning, you've talked a lot about the technical onboarding side of it. So it's like how to get caught up to speed on what's happening in the business, which is through the systems they use, the data they provide, all that kind of stuff. The other beast that I'm curious about is like if you were to recommend someone who's beginning their career or starting their freelance career out, it's like, how should they, I don't know the right way to word it other than like emotionally onboard to a brand so that they can build allies and have a chance to be the most successful? Because the
Yeah.
technical seems straightforward, but curious to get your thoughts on that other piece.
Yeah, I learned that a lot at Capture Box. I think before, that was a piece that I was really missing, because transparently, the clients in the first 1 to 3 years turned really quickly for me. And that's
Mm,
because I didn't give them the attention that they needed. I was very disproportionately focused on my quality of living and my boundaries, which is great if it's a side gig and it's a small business that has a lot of other stuff they want to worry about and they don't want to worry about that channel. But at this point of my career, I mean, we're working with 7-figure brand minimum. So they require a different level of attention. And not only they require it, but I would want to give it, just because there's so much on the line. I'm incentivizing myself emotionally to incentivize them by thinking about all the people that are dependent on this business, right? So if you're thinking about the business as just a group of people, I think it makes it easier to create that more emotional relationship, treating them as a person. Like if you were a business funding the lives of like 10 to 100 people, there's a lot of pressure on you. You want someone else to take on the work to also relieve that pressure on you. So it's just thinking about their perspective and responding that way. And that does require like, responding quickly, being able to, and of course you have your own deep work on the back end. So there's a lot of like internal calculation of what intensity of importance is this. And depending on the intensity of importance, I'm responding in the next second, or I'm responding in the next few hours. But I think it comes in with check-ins and being proactive about how you're communicating and what you're working on and what you're seeing in the account so that they don't have to dig into it to find out.
Yeah, the proactive nature seems like it's so important in any case. So it's like proactive in terms of
Yeah.
change, proactive in terms of communication. I feel like all of that is super important through it all.
It's non-negotiable if you want to be successful in this. I mean, everyone that I've talked to here, you, Emmett in the chat, and like many others on Twitter are like extremely proactive. I don't think a non-proactive would be running their business, doing their work, and also responding to friends online to maintain relationships in their network if they weren't.
Very true. Very true. Very, very true. The other thing this has me thinking about is like, I've talked to a lot of like organizational leaders who joined, like Shaq, like joined.
Yeah.
The other interesting perspective here is like, you're not only a strategist, but you're an executor of the work and making sure that it's like done really well. And what I'm
Yeah.
curious about is like, if you would have any advice for anyone out there on how to work with the organizational leaders better.
Whoa, that's easy. Make their job as easy as possible. And it's it's easy as it's coming out of my mouth, but in practice, like organizational leaders have the leeway to be kind of murky when they're communicating because there's so much information getting fed into their mind on a day-to-day basis, talking to other people in leadership, that as someone like me working with them, my job is to extract the value from what they're saying and like turn it into actionable items. And that does require very specific questions. And if you're unsure of the specific, give options to the specific. But it's never like, oh, what are we doing? That's never the question. It can never be the question. You're never going to get an answer to that. Maybe in like 7 business days, or when it becomes so urgent that they need to bring it up again with more detail. But you never want to wait to that point because that ruins the relationship. So first advice is be very specific with your questions, and that makes it easier for the people that you're working with, even like horizontal or vertical, to work with you. And they're going to want to work with you because you clarify what's in their mind.
Don't know if this is exactly accurate, but I'm like, I've heard of this concept called the leadership ladder, or like the ladder of responsive. Here, I've pulled up a Google image search.
It's
Have you seen this thing before?
I have not.
So I feel like it's what you described intuitively. How do I zoom? Bruh. All right. Well, we're just gonna
I can
do
read.
this. It's like takes no responsibility, expects leader to solve the problem. Leader solves problem, staff watches and learns. Describe the problem and asks for help, generates options and the leader for decision, provides option and makes recommendation, considers options, makes decision, and informs after the fact. So it feels like what you're describing is like the progress through this. And it's like the hack, it's hard to hack, but like your experience has taught you this, is like trying to move your way up the ladder quickly and ingesting the information quickly enough to be able to make these decisions. So,
and this is why I'm
the
so
model.
hell-bent on the skill of resourcefulness and alongside that communication, which creates the outcome of comprehension and just like an easier workflow altogether. I mean, this industry, amongst many others, requires working with others. So I'm like, if we can't even learn how to communicate to ourselves, how are we supposed to do that with others? So that's been like kind of a main focus on the back burner at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting because like you've lived a lot of experience at this point and like started to accumulate it. And something I wanted to double click into that you were talking about before was initially starting out lifestyle focused and like coming back to the blend. Because like with the lifestyle focus, there's this thing. I saw one of these TikToks that was talking about like FAFO economics. You seen those ones?
No,
So
I'm not in the economics world.
So it was this TikToker and she was talking about it's just like, oh yeah, like what we follow is like FAFO economics, and like FAFO stands for fuck around and find out. You know?
Oh, I totally live by that.
Okay.
Now I could say that I'm well versed in family.
Yeah, it's like pure fuck around and find out, like willing to take risks and everything that comes with that. So I'm just curious about your perspective of what role work plays in your life now at this stage, as you've gone through that transition from like saying it's more lifestyle to now figuring out what sounds like a blend in this case.
Yeah, it is a blend. Lifestyle has taken a back burner from a tangible sense, but I just think it's just personal development journey was learning that happiness, peace, whatever is not found in things external of yourself, because these are emotions created within yourself. So that ran parallel to this work journey of realizing that, yeah, the lifestyle encouraged the state of being, of feeling free or feeling at peace or feeling wealthy internally. But there are ways within your own resources, like me sitting down at my desk, that I can create that feeling on my own. So it became less dependent on the tangible lifestyle and more focused on achieving that world here and prepping it for the future as well. So now work is more of a support engine for the future, while also, yeah, I was just a support engine for the future, like learning now as much as I can, failing as much as I can, talking to as many people as I can to realize the gap between who I am now and who I need to become to, one, make the money that I want, of course, for the family that I want in the future, for the experiences that I want in the future. And also, I mean, I don't have my family now, but I do have my family, like my mom, my dad, my aunt, my grandparents, and I'm taking trips with them and planning trips with them in the next year. So it's supportive in lifestyle in that way. Just the focus is different. The locus of focus is different. LOL. The
Hey,
locus
there we
of
go.
focus.
Locus of focus. We have to talk about passion now in this. Like I feel like passion is a natural conversation that comes up. Like we're told to follow our passion. We're told to find our passion. Curious about your
Bullshit.
interpretation of the advice. No, I'm curious to hear what you had to say. Yeah. No, for sure. For sure.
The shorthand version is that it's bullshit. I think most people use passion as a scapegoat, um, not realizing the entire extent of fulfilling it would create in their life. Like, I think in the past, being an art major, I mean, I had a passion for art. I still have a passion for art, and being in the weeds and trying to make that a reality. Um, I loved it, but you don't need to go to a different destination to feel passion.
Mm,
Or how, hold on, let me try to figure out how to articulate this. Passion can be created wherever you are. You could create it with art, yes, but I think when I started that train of thought back in college, I expected that if I became successful in art, nothing would be hard. I think we expect going after our passions as a way to create a life that isn't hard, when in reality, any life that you choose is going to be hard. So the question became less about how do I fulfill my passion and more about what problem would I be most excited to solve over and over again? Because problems will keep coming up inevitably.
That is so interesting. Because now we're just talking about like the syntax and definitions in my mind. Because
Yeah.
because passion, I agree with you when you talked about art in that scenario. Because if you saw the Shireen episode, you would have heard me mention. But like I played basketball and we talked about it. But like up until my first year of college, and I
Yeah.
would have said that was the thing that I was passionate about. Right? It's a tangible thing that I could feel almost. But then, like
Mhm.
you said, it's like there's work to do that peels it back to understand why was I passionate about that thing. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
almost drawing to of what you're saying, like the daily problems to solve. Because like when I think of basketball, the biggest things for me was just like I really love teamwork, like being a part of something that's bigger than myself. I like solving problems quickly, and I like to get
Yeah.
better every single day in a competitive environment. So it's like
Yeah.
those emotions can drive me anywhere, basically. And I almost now describe that as my passion. I'm like, that's actually what I'm passionate about. Like I search for it. Hey, fuck yeah. You know what I mean? So like that's why I was curious to know your interpretation, because when I heard you speaking about like, oh, making sure that every day I'm working on stuff that I enjoy, I'm like, is that passion?
Yeah.
Like that could be called passion. Like that sounds like it makes sense in my mind. But curious to
Yeah.
know what you think, where your head's at.
The basketball analogy was perfect because I was also in basketball in high school. I loved it throughout my entire life. I was not good at it. Um, I was always the person that made the first cut and I never made the second cut. But in high school, I convinced them to let me practice with them anyways, and I eventually got on the team even though I didn't make the second cut to begin with.
Nice.
But just being in that space, the way that you described it, a lot of those skills are easily transferable to what we're both doing today. And there's something so fulfilling about being able to see a situation in a split second and know exactly where to pivot. And that's why it's the best sport to watch. It's the best sport. No one can fight me on that. Nothing else can compete.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say like the same now that you break it down. In the recent, maybe like a few months ago, I had during a weekday a really weird schedule of, a hair appointment. I had work. I had to go to the gym with my trainer. There's just a lot of things, but that specific day, it was less about implementation as the tangible work, and a lot of problems came up that required a lot of digging. And reflecting on that day, because I had such a like full sense by the end of it, I'm like, oh, I recognize that this is where my passion lies. It's not just the lifestyle, the people that I work with, but it's also the things that I'm working on. It's not clicking buttons, although I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. But it's taking the time, having the time, and taking the time to really investigate what's going on and being the person that someone's reliant on to figure out that answer
Yeah.
is both nerve-wracking but also very gratifying. I'm like, wow, me? Okay, I'll do it. I'll figure it out. I'll fuck around and find out.
Fuck around and find out. Yeah, but I think like it's attached to the growth mindset of like, yes, I want to rise up to that level and tie it together.
Yeah.
And it's quite fascinating to me only because like the check that I'll do for myself to be like, okay, is this truly something I'm enjoying? Is like I'll ask myself pretty frequently. I'm like, am I having fun? Like, is this fun? And it's like, if my
Yeah.
answer is no, then I have to be like, ooh, why is it not fun? It's like, this was too long of a day. Or it's like, oh, I had a bad conversation or whatever it might be. And it's like, is that
Mhm.
a non-negotiable? Is that just for the day? Like what happens? Like, is this forever? And then if my answer to fun is consistently like, I'm not having fun, I'm not having fun, I'm not having fun, I'm like, then I got to look in the mirror and be like, all right, what the hell's going on? Like there's something that's causing me stress that is now
Yeah.
taken away from the fun and the passion that I had. And it's like having to address it. But like through the isolation to be like, that's the part that's not having fun. Sorry, I'm like speaking super freaking meta now. But it's like after isolating down to like what's actually causing me stress and it's not being fun, it's like I can then remove it. Be like, great, let's get back to having fun. I signed up for this. Like I'm cool with it. I can work as long as you need me now. I'm good. So
Yeah, I would even
journey is quite
ask
interesting.
after that train of thought, because sometimes the conclusion of this isn't fun comes from an avoidance of something outside of it completely. Or I've noticed in myself, I say that implementation isn't fun every day, but it's part of the work. So recognizing that it's just part of the life that I want is also asking, one, of course, can this be delegated? If not, two, how can I make it fun? So it's a mixture of recognizing what is naturally going to attract you somewhere, and
Yeah.
also that gap of knowledge of how you can make it attractive. Like change your perception to make it attractive. And for me, the implementation is always like a freaking thorn in my side because I'm switching through so many project tasks, and it's just a lot of monotonous copy, paste, insert, QA. There's a whole kind of checklist involved. I catch up on shows on the back end. Don't tell anyone, but everyone's gonna know that I do, because it makes it fun and it gets the work done. Because if I was just looking at the screen, duh, 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 I'm not gonna catch anything.
So what are you watching to make sure that you catch it?
I'm really gonna expose myself now. This is what I want to know from everyone on Twitter. What are you watching and why do you love it? And I don't care about your KPIs. I don't care how much money you made in the last week. Whatever. Those are boring
That's so
questions.
funny.
What
That's
show
so
are
funny.
you watching?
So wait, what are
And
you watching then? And what do you love about it?
I'm gonna expose myself here. And I've been watching a lot of anime,
Okay.
which I would recommend everyone on Twitter to watch anime, because I never thought I would become this person. I really didn't want to become this
You're this
person. That would
person. You're
be
this person.
but this is the reality. And it's different than American shows or whatever live people shows, because there's something about the writers that always includes a training arc, always includes some strategy. Like you don't know you're always guessing what's happening throughout the entire show, when the reality of it comes up at the end and you're like, fuck. And then sometimes you get it in the middle, you're like, I'm smart. Yeah, sometimes you get in the middle and you're like, oh, I caught that. But the lessons learned, it's not just trash TV, you get a laugh or whatever. I mean, you do get a laugh from anime, but you also get a lot of deeper lessons that are akin to like Stoicism or Buddhism or whatever. So this last week in the theaters, I saw the Demon Slayer movie,
No,
and it was so good.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet. You can't spoil it for me. You can't spoil it for me. But we got a One
Are you
Piece
gonna
fan in the
watch
chat.
it?
Yeah, I think I have to. But I can't. You can't spoil it for me. We have a One Piece fan in the chat, which is awesome.
Okay,
Hey,
see, you know that person is a hard worker because they fucking watched all of One Piece. You need commitment, you need consistency. Because I can't do that. Apparently, I don't have those goals.
that's so funny. I as a kid, and now the scene that I reference a lot is from Dragon Ball Z when Piccolo got his arm cut off and he was charging up his special beam cannon for what felt like 2 episodes. I'm just like, this guy's locked in. Oh my gosh. He's about
That's
to do
reality in the
something.
works.
Yeah. That's facts. It's so true. I'm actually now like, I want to put a poll out into the world and be like, what the hell is everybody watching and like what they're into? Yeah, that's so interesting. That's so
I think it
interesting.
tells a lot about a person, what they're into. Like, I feel like the people that work a lot throughout the day, maybe 12 or 14 hours, are watching the reality TV shows or nothing at all.
To turn their brains off, and it's just like, let me shut
Yeah.
down a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's me on the busy days. In all honesty, like I'll crack a Love Island and be like, all right, I don't have to think.
No, no way.
Swear, yeah, swear, and be like, don't have to think. So I'm up on all the Love Island, like what's going on. But then when I want to watch a show, I catch myself watching a lot of like mobster style shows. Like right now, I'm watching The Godfather of Harlem, which is a story about Bumpy
Sounds
Johnson.
intense.
Yeah. It's a story about Bumpy Johnson, who was like a crack cocaine dealer or like kingpin in Harlem, New York, in the time when all of the like Italian mob families ran the city.
Yeah.
But I love those shows. Like it's just like the way they navigate is so cool to me. And like in a different world, I'm like a mob boss or something. So I'm just like, all right, cool. I like this.
But what about it? Is it the culture? Is it how they ran things? Or
Yeah. So the way that I describe it is like I'm a big fan of all shows like this, like The Wire. Like I loved The Wire when I first watched it, and like I've watched it a couple times since. And I'm half Japanese, so I've been to Japan a ton. And the first thing you'll hear me reference, I'm just like, man, the way people are in Japan is like how gang culture is. It's like they police themselves. It doesn't even matter. Like you're gonna walk on this side
yeah,
up the stairs, and you're gonna listen to that, or someone's coming for your ass. It's not the police. Someone's coming for you, right? And there's
yeah. The
some
person
element of
behind you,
that.
in front of you, next to you.
Yeah, and like the like how respect is just baked in to everything. It's like culturally, I'm sure you can resonate with that. And then
Yeah.
there is a like weird to say like a power distance that exists. So it's just like there's a hierarchy that's followed. And I feel like everything
Mhm.
culturally in my life has always been that way. And it's like always helpful. I wouldn't even say helpful. It's just like something I enjoy to see. I'm like, oh yeah, see, this is why it's good. Like this is how it can be.
Yeah.
This is why it's important. So I think
That's
those are
so
the reasons. I think
interesting.
those are the reasons why. Yeah.
I think mine is just seeing people overcome the hardest points in their life
Mm,
gives me the non-excuse to like overcome those points in my life. Especially like for anyone that watches anime, it's very much like you get to the breaking point and you overcome it. Always, always. And just seeing that over and over again kind of reinforces the belief in my head that anything is one endurable into you can overcome it.
I love it.
I'm very emotionally driven
I
by
love it.
that stuff.
I love it. I love it. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. I I do want to jump back to the community stuff here because as I'm thinking about, okay, we got to pull them. We got to make sure we get everyone in like what they're thinking. So we have to do that. But what I'm also thinking is like you started our conversation off with the idea of community and how receptive everybody
Yeah.
has been since day one. I'm just wondering if you have any advice for people of like they might be scared, they might be nervous on like how to break into the community. Just wondering if you have any advice for one, the emotional side, and then two, the tactical side of like participating in what's going on.
Yeah. I think it's easy to categorize as communicating online as different as communicating in person.
Hmm.
From my experience, not creating like removing that distinction altogether has helped me in knowing how to interact with people online. Because if you were in person at a coffee shop, you're not going to walk up to the cashier and be like, "Oh, do you want to buy my product?" No. It's like you don't walk up to the cashier and be like, "Oh, how do you make 100,000 in a week?" Like you're never gonna like just start the first impression with a demand, right? Or even a soft ask to begin with. So thinking from that approach, you talk to someone and you see something that you relate to and you speak on that. Whether that be the outfit of the person next to you in line or the drink that they're ordering or in the the online sense, there's a lot of places to go to figure out how to relate to another person, because you're not just getting who they are in the present moment, you're also getting historically what they have talked about. You're getting their website, they're getting their blogs. Like, I met Emmett earlier this year as an example, and we're like slightly adjacent, not really. He's more of like outside of like the circle that I'm always in contact to on a daily basis, but I stalk everyone that I come into contact online, and I looked at his blog, and all of his writing made me feel something good. So immediately I felt that kinship, regardless if he felt it towards me, but I just talked to him as if I knew him through his writing. And from there, he has permanently and non-consensually has become my dad of the internet. And then I know. And he creates really cool things on the side. And I just love, like, whenever I do see him commenting, I think Emmett is a really good example on how to talk to people online, regardless of how connected you are to what they're working on. Because I'll see him commenting on things and it's just fun. Like, we're just talking. It's like as if you come to a dorm party in college. You're not talking about work, or you're talking about, oh yeah, what are you drinking, like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah. You just like shoot the shit. I think the skill of shooting the shit is an easy funnel into working in just awareness on what you're working on, awareness on what other people are working on, so that when an opportunity does come up, you just connect the pieces. And that creates, there's a specific name for it. It's not social brownie points, but I want to call it social brownie points. You accrue enough social brownie points and you close opportunities.
For sure. Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you talk about it in all honesty, because I'm personally someone who found it hard to participate in the community.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think the main reason is like the medium of communication. I'm a talk and video person for sure, over written all the time. So it's like, written wise, I'll overthink the crap out of it. But I think the implementation that you're talking about is actually really easy. It's almost, imagine what would happen in the physical life via conversation, and it's like, bring a version of that online,
Yeah.
which I think is such an easy starting place. So that seems like great advice.
Yeah, and be okay with people perceiving what you say wrong. Like, you're gonna be misunderstood, as well as you're misunderstood in person. It doesn't reflect anything on your character. It does show you what people you can talk to and what people maybe you need to be more considerate on how you talk to. But it's always a learning experience either way. Like, from the get-go, I remember my first pin post was looking for people who are open to feedback, who ask questions, not make assumptions, who blah blah blah. And that was kind of the first thing that people saw coming on my site. So whenever I said some shit on other people's posts, it's like, well, that's just me. You could ask me, or I could ask you what you meant. Like, this is an open conversation.
100%. Keep it a buck at all time. All right. You've been so generous with your time. I have one final question for you that I ask everybody who comes up here on.
I'm so ready.
Okay, if you don't have an immediate one, throw it to me. You know this feel. But wondering if do you have a favorite quote? And if so, what is it and why?
I do. And it's from The Little Prince. And it's, what is essential is invisible to the eye. And it's a daily reminder of literally the things that are truly essential to your being are invisible. And it comes down to connections, comes down to like how, yeah, I mean, like, love.
It's so, I was talking to Rabba from Vermont the other day, and he was talking about this idea of as you go further in your career, you could accumulate more money, but if you're just sitting on the top of your throne by yourself, it's like, it's no fun. Like this idea of
Yeah.
making sure that you bring the people with you, or you have a community of people, like that's what it's all about at the end of the day. You just want to
Yeah.
do cool shit with your friends, you know? So I feel like it resonates.
Yeah, and
a ton.
I would want to ask this question to anyone that's listening, including yourself, Evan. When you're on your deathbed, what memories do you want? Do you want it of your computer screen, or do you want it laughing with your friends and family?
It's such
No
an
hate on
interesting.
work, though.
Well,
No
I
hate on
think
work.
I always think like this is one of those conversations, and it's like the biggest thing to sweep under the rug. Like as much as I talk about like, oh, do something you're passionate about, like redefine it and like make sure you're following that. Like you always
Yeah.
have to, there always is the check. Cause like, I think, you spoke about family, and it's just like, you don't have your own family yet. I have my wife, but not our own family quite yet. And I'm thinking about it in seasons, essentially. So it's like in this season
Mhm.
of my life, like what is important to me right now? And is
Yeah.
that right for it to be important? And like, when does that shift? And what does that look like? So when you're looking back on your deathbed, it's like, did I live each season of my life in the intentional way that I'm happy with? Or did I get swept up
Mhm.
in the matrix? So I don't have a perfect answer like for what it should and shouldn't be, but I
There
think
is
I'm
no
trying to be
shoulds.
intentional. There is no
Don't shit
should.
on yourself.
That's right. We got to be nice with the language. Yep, for sure. Got
Yeah,
to be
don't
nice with
shit
the
on
language.
yourself.
Got to
You
be
get
nice
to
with the
choose. We
language.
live on creative mode. You always live on creative mode. You could create whatever the fuck you want, whenever you want. You could decide today that work isn't important and quit everything. You could decide tomorrow that you want to like work all day, 24 hours, and you can do that. Like it's just up to you.
Okay, I clipped that, so that's going to be a clip for sure. Emmett says in the chat, my lifetime revenue dashboard. Emmett and I talked about this, like a variation, and he's working on something right now to try and make it like easier to understand what's going on.
Yeah,
But
I'm
I
so
appreciate
excited
you.
for it.
I appreciate
You
you. I appreciate you
too.
for coming up here. Are there any final words that you want to leave with the audience?
No, I think I said all that I need to say. Just like reflect on your mortality, guys. Think about what your values are. If there's a fly on your wall and they see you not acting in line with your values, just ask yourself some questions.
Appreciate
And
you.
that's it.
I appreciate
Love
you.
you guys. Thank you, Evan.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to you really soon. No, thanks a ton. Thanks a ton for coming up here. It means a lot. It means a lot. This was awesome. I appreciate it.
For sure. See ya.
All right. I'll catch you later. Oh man, everybody. We've been around the like this, I want to say spectrum, but like the cycle of different elements today, right? Like we started out with very tactical, let's call it fire, right? It's just like, okay, fire, how do we actually run these ads? How do we build creatives that are actually incredible? Then we've kind of gone along the way, like water, feel it out, move like water, a little bit of stone, just like build foundation. And Alyssa is wise beyond her years, right? Like I pulled her up here with the idea of speaking to someone on the Gen Z side and how it's represented. I think we got portions of that, that's for sure, in terms of the career. But there's also a maturity that comes with the lens that she brought. So I think being able to speak to her career and reflect on why she's taken actions the way that she has is a really important skill for everyone to possess. So it's really cool to see her start to play that out in real time. And also everything else that comes with that. As always, I appreciate everyone for taking the time. Like it means a ton. It means an absolute ton for you all to be here. This is today's episode of Thumbstop Live. We are live every Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. Check us out, especially on Twitter and X. That's where I'm posting a lot. At Thumbstop Live, at Thumbstop Live, at Thumbstop Live. Tap in with us. Tomorrow, we got a great episode. I got Lisa from Threshold BC coming up here talking about her journey. The last one we had was Taylor from Headline, and everyone seemed to love that one. So excited for people to check Lisa out. But if there's anything else, always let me know. I appreciated the conversation today. This is so fantastic, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.